Hello there everyone, and welcome back to the very last topic review video of AP Psychology. Man, does that feel weird to say? Now, technically this isn't the very last video. There's also the Unit 5 summary video, which covers everything from Unit 5 in one video. Plus, there's still my AP Psychology mega video, which reviews the entire course all in one video. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Before we review the entire unit and prepare for the AP National Exam, let's first go over treatments of psychological disorders. Now, quick disclaimer, if you have not yet watched my 5.4 topic review video, then go back and watch that video first. That video goes over all of the different psychological disorders. In this video, we are not going to review what each disorder is. Instead, we are going to solely focus on possible treatments. Today, we can see that many treatment plans utilize psychotherapy, a treatment that is used to help individuals address and manage emotional, psychological, and behavioral challenges through structured conversations with a trained mental health professional. Psychotherapy is more commonly used thanks to meta-analytic studies, which found that psychotherapy is generally effective, particularly when therapists use evidence-based techniques, approach clients with cultural humility, and build a strong therapeutic bond. Remember, meta-analysis is a research method that combines and analyzes the results of multiple independent studies on the same topic. The goal is to identify overall trends, patterns, or effects. Meta-analysis uses statistical methods to calculate an overall effect size, which quantifies how effective a treatment or intervention is. Remember back to Unit 0, effect size shows us the strength of a relationship between variables. A large effect size means there is a substantial difference between the groups, while a small effect size indicates a more minor difference. The larger the effect size, the more meaningful the results are in the real world. Now, in order to make sure that a treatment is right for an individual, it is important that mental health professionals utilize evidence-based interventions. By using evidence-based methods, therapists can apply approaches that are most likely to work, rather than relying on untested or outdated techniques. Therapists must also show cultural humility and work to establish a strong therapeutic alliance with their client in order to be successful. Cultural humility involves the therapist being respectful and open to the client's cultural background, beliefs, and values, while also acknowledging and valuing the differences between themselves and the client. While therapeutic alliance refers to the trusting, collaborative relationship established between the therapist and the client. This partnership is built on open communication, mutual respect, and collaboration on therapy goals, all of which help increase the effectiveness of a treatment. Today, we cannot talk about treatment without also talking about medications. We can see that around the mid-20th century, the development of antipsychotic, antidepressant, and anti-anxiety drugs changed the treatment scene. These psychotropic medications helped manage symptoms that previously kept individuals in long-term psychiatric hospitals or asylums. For context, when you hear psychotropic medications, just think about medications and drugs that are used to treat mental health conditions. These are drugs that affect brain function and alter mood, behavior, emotions, or cognitive processes. As psychotropic medications became more effective at stabilizing conditions, the amount of people staying in institutions started to decrease. This led to the Deinstitutionalization Movement, which refers to the closing down or scaling back of psychiatric hospitals and moving patients back into their communities. This shift allowed clients increased freedom and allowed them to reintegrate into society. It also led to a greater focus on community-based support services, such as outpatient clinics, telehealth platforms, or group homes. Today, many treatment plans utilize medications to help stabilize or manage symptoms and use psychological therapies to address emotional, behavioral, and social challenges. This allows individuals to not only get the help that they need, but live a more normal life. Now, when it comes to therapy and treatments, individuals often can choose between either group therapy or individual therapy. Group therapy involves several individuals meeting together with a therapist. Members will share experiences experiences and provide support under the therapist's guidance. This allows members to learn from each other's experiences and viewpoints. Plus, it also has the added benefit of creating a community and shared understanding between people. It also allows individuals to get feedback not just from their therapists, but from peers who are also facing similar struggles. And it's more cost effective since the costs are being shared among the group. On the other hand, some individuals will prefer individual therapy. Here, one individual meets with a therapist in private to solely focus on the client's personal concerns, goals, and treatment plan. This one-on-one relationship with the client and the therapist allows for a very specific feedback and also a more in-depth look at the client's personal issues. Individual therapy is often more flexible with timing and more private, allowing an individual to share more openly, but can also be more expensive. Now, it is important that the therapists or psychologists that are in charge of the therapy or treatment follow several key ethical principles that the American Psychological Association has set in place. The first is non-maleficence, which means do no harm. Therapists must act in a way that avoids causing harm, whether physical, emotional, or psychological, to the people that they're trying to help. The second is fidelity. It is important that a therapist is trustworthy and honors their professional commitments. This means they keep information shared between a client and themselves confidential, unless there is a legal or ethical obligation to disclose. The third is integrity, which states that therapists must be fair, honest, and truthful in all professional activities. This means psychologists must engage in honest communication with their clients, providing accurate information about their qualifications, treatment methods, and also ensure that the client fully understands what to expect from the therapy. Lastly, therapists must have respect for people's rights and dignity. This requires psychologists to obtain informed consent from the client, ensuring that the client is fully informed about the therapy process and agrees to the proposed treatment plan. The psychologist also must be aware of and respect the differences in the client's culture, religion, gender, sexual orientation, and any other aspects of the client's identity. And the psychologist must allow the client to make their own decisions about their treatment and life, giving the client autonomy that they deserve. These ethical principles help guide professional conduct, ensuring that psychologists uphold high standards of care and respect when working with clients. All right, now we are about to go into the different psychological perspectives and talk about how they approach treatment. But before we do, I want to review hypnosis, which is a state of focused attention, heightened suggestibility, and deep relaxation. Hypnosis has shown effectiveness in treating pain and anxiety. It can help reduce the perception of pain by guiding individuals to refocus their attention or reframe how they experience physical sensations. But contrary to popular belief, it is not effective at helping an individual remembering past events or having an individual relive earlier experiences in life. So the idea that hypnosis can take a person back to an earlier age is simply a myth. One important consideration with hypnosis is that if it is used to retrieve a person's memory, it can sometimes lead to the creation of false memories. This can occur if the individual is asked leading questions while in the hypnotic state, which may unintentionally suggest or implant details that did not actually happen. Hypnosis should be conducted by trained therapists who understand its benefits and limitations. This ensures that the client will be safe and the practice can be utilized in an effective manner. All right, so now we need to shift gears and start talking about how the different psychological perspectives approach treatment. Starting with psychodynamic therapies, which are rooted in the idea that a person's unconscious mind shapes their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. To better understand these unresolved conflicts and ideas, psychologists will utilize free association, which is a technique that encourages patients to speak freely about any thoughts, words, or images that come to mind. This free sharing often can reveal underlying themes or conflicts or even emotions that the patient might have. While the client is sharing their thoughts, the therapist sits and listens, trying to identify any patterns or clues that point to the unconscious motivations. Another tool that psychodynamic therapy may utilize is dream interpretation, which is when therapists analyze the content of dreams. Generally, we can see dreams consist of manifest content, which is the actual storyline of the dream, and latent content, which is the deeper, symbolic meaning that reflects hidden desires, fears, or conflicts. Therapists using dream interpretations seek to uncover the underlying meaning of their dreams. This helps the individual connect the symbols in their dreams to their emotional struggles or past experiences of their life. Now, before we go into our next set of therapies, I want to remind you that I have created over 10 different practice quizzes, one for each group of the psychological disorders, and another quiz on the different types of therapies. These quizzes will help you practice and apply everything that you are learning and reviewing in this video, all to make sure that you're truly ready for your upcoming quiz, test, or that AP exam. You can find all the quizzes plus other resources inside my ultimate review packet. Just click the link in the description of this video. Up next, we have cognitive therapies, which look at how maladaptive thinking can cause emotional and behavioral problems. Cognitive therapies focus on identifying negative or distorted thoughts and irrational beliefs. Once maladaptive thoughts are identified, therapists will use cognitive restructuring to help improve an individual's mood, coping skills, and overall mental health. Cognitive restructuring is a technique where therapists help a client recognize, challenge, and replace maladaptive thoughts with more realistic and positive thoughts. For example, if a client frequently thinks, "I am a failure," the therapist would guide them to analyze the evidence for and against that belief, then reformulate it into a more balanced statement. For instance, "I'm capable of success in many areas, even if I struggle with some tasks." Cognitive therapists will also utilize fear hierarchies to help clients with anxiety or phobias. A fear hierarchy is a list of anxiety-provoking situations that is arranged from least frightening to most frightening. This technique involves gradually exposing the client to their fears while teaching and using coping strategies to reduce the anxiety or fear that the client experiences. Lastly, cognitive therapies believe that people should focus on the cognitive triad, which consists of three components: the self, the world, and the future. You can see this visually represented here. We can see that the triad creates a self-reinforcing loop, with negative thoughts from one area feeding into the others. Cognitive therapy focuses on developing more positive, realistic thought patterns for the clients that ultimately break the cycle. When the cognitive triad is addressed, it allows people to replace their unhelpful beliefs with more constructive and positive thinking. Now, next we have applied behavior analysis, which focuses on identifying how different environmental factors, such as rewards, punishments, and reinforcements, influence behavior, then uses those concepts to modify or improve an individual's function. Behavior analysis believes that behavior is learned and can be modified through reinforcement and consequences. Now, there are a variety of techniques that therapists and psychologists can use. The first is exposure therapies, which involve a client slowly being exposed to a feared stimulus while practicing relaxation techniques. This utilizes classical conditioning. The goal is to pair the anxious stimulus with feelings of calm rather than fear. For example, systematic desensitization, a type of exposure therapy, is a treatment for phobias in which the client is gradually exposed to increasingly intense versions of the stimuli that they fear, all while learning and practicing relaxation techniques to help manage their anxiety. Next is aversion therapy, which is when unwanted behaviors are paired with an unpleasant stimulus. The goal here is to reduce the behavior by creating a new negative association in the mind. For instance, if a person needs to stop drinking alcohol, a therapist could put things in alcoholic drinks that cause a person to have a disgusting taste in their mouth, thus having the individual associate alcohol with a bad taste. Now, some psychologists and therapists will use token economies to help change behavior. A token economy is when clients earn tokens for displaying desired behaviors. This approach uses operant conditioning, using positive reinforcements for targeted behaviors. When a client gets a token, they can use the token later to gain different rewards, with each reward costing a different amount of token. Lastly, there is biofeedback, which uses electronic monitoring to convey information about physiological processes. Clients here learn to control bodily functions by receiving real-time data. This lets people become more aware of their physiological responses and practice relaxation techniques to modify these responses. Oftentimes, this is used with individuals who have anxiety or depression. For instance, biofeedback can help clients regulate various body systems, including the sympathetic nervous system. Individuals with anxiety often experience an overactive sympathetic nervous system, which leads to symptoms such as increased heart rate and rapid guided breathing. Biofeedback can help clients reduce their activation of the sympathetic system by having the individual focus on relaxation techniques. Biofeedback can also help activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps the body in recovering from stress by promoting relaxation and recovery. In general, biofeedback works by monitoring the client's physiological responses, such as their heart rate, blood pressure, and brainwave activity, and displaying that information on a screen. Clients can then observe their body's responses to different stimuli and practice self-regulation techniques, such as deep breathing or meditation, all in real time. This immediate feedback helps clients see the impact of these techniques on their physiological state, ultimately improving the client's ability to self-regulate their body's reactions to different stimuli. Up next, we have cognitive behavioral therapies. CBT is really a blend of two approaches, the cognitive and behavioral. The cognitive side focuses on identifying and challenging maladaptive thinking and replacing that thinking with more balanced and realistic thoughts. While on the other hand, the behavioral side focuses more on introducing practical changes to a person's behavior to help the client implement healthier habits and reduce any maladaptive actions that they have. There are two main types of cognitive behavioral therapies that you want to be familiar with. The first is dialectical behavioral therapy, which was originally developed to treat borderline personality disorder, but now is used for a variety of disorders that involve emotional dysregulation. DBT focuses on a person's mindfulness, distress, tolerance, emotional regulation, and interpersonal effectiveness. By focusing on these four key areas, DBT is able to help clients remain in the moment, improve their coping skills, help manage their overwhelming emotions, and improve communication and relationship skills. This therapy helps individuals manage intense emotions, reduce self-destructive behaviors, and improve their interpersonal skills. The other therapy that you need to be familiar with for cognitive behavioral therapies is rational emotive behavior therapy, which focuses on disrupting irrational beliefs that lead to negative emotions or self-defeating behaviors. This approach uses the ABCDE model. A for activating. This is the external event that causes the client to feel or think a certain way. B for belief. This is the irrational thought or automatic beliefs about the event, ourselves, or other people. C for consequence. This is the emotional behavioral result. D for disputation. Here is when the irrational belief is challenged. And lastly, E for effective new belief, which is when the irrational beliefs have been resisted and a more rational, positive perspective is adopted. So we can see that cognitive behavioral therapies take a holistic approach by trying to address both thoughts and behaviors. Speaking of positive perspectives, our next type of therapies is humanistic therapies, which is commonly referred to as person-centered therapy. Humanistic therapies focus on a person's inherent goodness and potential. The therapist's role in therapy here is to create a nurturing environment where the client feels safe to explore their thoughts and emotions. This is done by active listening, which is a communication technique where the therapist fully concentrates on what the client shares. This will involve the therapist often paraphrasing what the client says back to them, all to validate the client's feelings and clarify any confusion that may be happening. The goal here is to encourage the client to feel heard and respected, helping them open up more and allow the therapist to gain insight into the client's thoughts, experiences, and emotions. Another part of humanistic therapies is using unconditional positive regard, which remember is when a person gets complete acceptance and support, regardless of what they think, feel, or do. This allows the client to feel safe to open up, which can lead to more personal growth. Generally, humanistic therapy seeks to achieve three goals. The first being self-actualization, which helps clients achieve their full potential and personal growth. The second being self-awareness, by encouraging clients to explore their own thoughts and feelings. And the third being congruence, which is when an individual's ideal self and actual experiences are consistent with each other. This goal seeks to reduce the gap between a client's real self and their ideal self. All right, now I know this has already been a long video, but don't worry, we only have 10 more perspectives left.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
I'm totally kidding. This is the last one. We're going to talk now about the biological perspective. which focuses on how disorders may come from biological processes, such as imbalances in neurotransmitters, brain structure abnormalities, or genetic factors. This perspective often uses psychoactive medications, which are substances that are designed to alter brain chemistry in a way to help manage symptoms. For AP Psychology, you want to be familiar with 4 different psychoactive medications. The first is antidepressants, which typically boost levels of serotonin and sometimes norepinephrine to help regulate a person's mood. These are commonly used for depression, anxiety, and other related conditions. Next is anti-anxiety drugs, which seek to enhance the action of GABA, a neurotransmitter that produces a calming effect, thereby reducing anxiety symptoms. The third is lithium, which helps stabilize mood swings. This is mainly used to treat bipolar disorder and help with the swings between mania and depression. And last but not least, there is antipsychotic medications, which aim to block dopamine receptors to reduce excessive dopamine activity. These can help address symptoms such as delusions or hallucinations common in schizophrenia and related disorders. Now, psychoactive medications can have side effects, and these can vary depending on the medication and the individual. But there is one specific side effect that you want to be familiar with for AP Psychology, and that is tardive dyskinesia, a movement disorder that is characterized by involuntary repetitive body movements, which often stem from long-term use of certain antipsychotic medications. Since antipsychotics often block dopamine receptors, long-term use can lead to imbalances, which can lead to disorders such as TD. Alright, now it isn't just psychoactive medications that the biological perspective utilizes. We can also see the use of surgical interventions as well. Psychosurgery, which involves performing a surgical procedure on the brain, such as lesioning or removing small areas of tissue, is done to alleviate severe psychiatric symptoms. Lesioning is used both in research and medical treatments. For research, it involves studying brain function by intentionally damaging or removing specific brain areas to observe the effect on behavior, cognition, or bodily function. This gives insight into different roles of each region of the brain. For medical treatment, it can be used to treat severe disorders. For example, sometimes lesioning is used to treat severe epilepsy or Parkinson's disease by destroying malfunctioning brain tissue. Now, over the years, we have seen psychosurgery evolve and change. For example, in the mid-20th century, lobotomies were used to treat schizophrenia and severe depression, but it often resulted in serious side effects. A lobotomy is a surgical procedure that involves severing connections in the brain's frontal lobe. Today, lobotomies are extremely rare due to the significant risks and due to the availability of safer, more effective treatments, such as medications or psychotherapy. Now, not all interventions have to be invasive. Some treatments, such as transcranial magnetic stimulation, are actually non-invasive and don't require any surgery. TMS uses magnetic fields to stimulate nerve cells in specific regions of the brain that are typically associated with mood regulation. This is often used for depression, but can be used for other conditions as well. One last intervention that we need to talk about is electroconvulsive therapy, which is a medical treatment where small electrical currents are passed through the brain to trigger a brief seizure. This is often used for severe depression, and it's only performed after other treatments have not worked. Now, the use of psychosurgeries have declined over the years, thanks to more effective approaches such as medications and psychotherapies. However, some are still performed in severe cases or treatment-resistant cases. Alright, well, there you have it. We are done with Unit 5 and done with the topic review videos for AP Psychology. Now you need to go to my ultimate review packet and check out the Unit 5 summary video, the study guide, the practice quizzes, and those answer keys, all to help you prepare for your Unit 5 test. Also, don't forget to check out the other AP test prep resources that I have, such as the Exam Slayer, which has digital practice exams, testing strategies, and FRQ practice, along with a digital grader, all of which will help you rock your AP Psychology National Exam. Also, for all of you who have been watching since the beginning of this class, and to those of you who have just recently started watching, I wanted to say thank you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you letting me help you in your AP Psychology journey. I wish you nothing but the best for the rest of the school year and on the AP National Exam. Thank you again for your support and letting me be just a small part of your journey. As always, I'm Mr. Sinn. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time online.